Hello, friends. It's Monday, April 14th, and we've got some Chapo coming at you. It's me, Felix, and Catherine today. Welcome back, Catherine.
Hello. Glad to be here.
Now today, obviously, a lot going on. We have some serious stuff to talk about, but I wanted to open today's show with a question for you, Felix, and it's a question that's based on recently I have introduced Catherine to a little TV show, a TV show that I know you were a fan of. I know we're both big fans of. The name of that TV show, it's a little place called Banshee and Sheriff Lucas Hood. So my question to open the show today for you, Felix, is which fictional American town would be cooler to live in? Charming, California, or Banshee, Pennsylvania?
That's unquestionably Banshee, right? Because, I mean, like, Charming is, like, they're both eventful, but Charming is eventful in the way that, like, well, first of all, the median income in Charming is, like, $700 annually. The Sons are the richest guys in town because they make just above the Medicaid cutoff.
Yeah, $25,000 a year.
Yeah, like before, like the residents of Charming would have no way to put on like the parade where Bobby Elvis like sings every year, just out of their own economic output. But in Banshee, which is like a town of like 1,000. They're constantly having like UFC title fights and like priceless diamonds are coming through all the time. Like it's a really exciting place.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I'm rewatching Banshee now. Catherine had never seen it before.
What a trip!
And I was just struck by like similar to Charming, California, another pleasant small American community that has a murder rate similar to like I don't know, like a violent death rate that would only be comparable to the Civil War in this country. And I was thinking particularly about in season 1 of Banshee, where they decide to have like the town's annual spirit festival that gets attacked by a gang of bikers who grab people off the street and drag them behind their motorcycles during their like farmers market.
To be fair, no one dies, but yeah, it is a violent act.
It would be like living on the coast of the British Isles in the year like 600.
Are those boats I see on the horizon?
I always think about that, like, especially in the first season, because that's when like Lucas Hood is just like, hey, I'm the sheriff. Hey, I'm the first like telegenic guy in this town in the last like 30 years.
He's the hottest man anyone has ever seen, and that's why every woman has to have sex with him.
He has sex with the entire adult female population of Banshee.
And some arguable adults.
I love in like I think it's the first episode where he's just getting into Banshee and he stops into a bar and with it, like he doesn't even say anything and he automatically fucks the hottest woman in Banshee. Like right before he takes the sheriff's identity. But during the first season, do you remember when there was that UFC champion who, like, weirdly, this was filmed in what, like 2007?
Yeah, around then.
They basically predicted John Jones. Because there's a UFC champion, like an MMA champion. It's not like the UFC proper. But he's like a tall, handsome black guy and was more athletic than most heavyweight champions in MMA at the time. But he's like, I think he commits a rape in Banshee, but Lucas Hood they have this like more brutal than they live fight.
Yeah.
Lucas,
Oh my God.
bites his ear off and like takes out his fucking eye. I always think like, did this not make the news? Like the sheriff of this town like forever crippled the UFC champion.
No, I like the fight between Lucas Hood and the MMA guy because it sort of gives the audience an indication of what Sheriff Lucas Hood's superpowers are, which is that like the more violently he is beaten, the stronger he gets. Like, Catherine, you were saying like he needs at least 4 broken ribs before he really starts a fight. Yeah.
He's always operating with 4 broken ribs. I also like that Banshee is like a town that seems like it has an actual tax base, but they can't hire more than 3 cops at any given time, despite the murder rate being 3,000%.
I mean, like that, like talk about a stroke of luck. They can only have 3 cops, but one of the cops is like Yeah, a guy who has like a Dark Souls perk in real life, where if he gets enough, if he loses enough HP, he does like triple fucking damage. I think I'm remembering more of Banshee, and I think this is where my illogical fear of getting my dick bitten off mid-fellatio.
Yeah.
Because that is like one of the first things we learn about Lucas Hood is that he did that to a guy. There's
well,
like this,
correction. I thought this was going to have to involve him biting the guy's dick off, which, I guess would still have been a little gay, even though it's in prison. But no, he actually cuts the guy's dick off with a blade, a straight razor that the guy has in his own hand. So he doesn't even have to touch the guy's dick to remove it from the albino guy's body.
How did no one do
0%
that to him?
gay. 0% gay.
How did no one do that to him before? Like, I get freaked out if, like, I don't know, there's a guarded razor too close to my dick.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, he was that. It must have been like a fucking like low security prison for white collar criminals, and there's just this random gigantic albino rapist in there. He did that to all the Enron guys.
Albino rapist.
Yeah. He's been doing that to like Jeff Skilling for 20 years. But they finally add like one more violent criminal. And he's like, oh shit, I didn't think that someone would do that. Well, I guess I have nothing to do for the rest of my life sentence.
He also
dick's cut off.
He also never seems to get like any time added to his sentence, despite like, violently attacking and sometimes killing guys in prison. These are all in flashbacks, by the way.
Well, it reminds me of the Oz rule, where every like 1 in every 20 like brutal public murders, they're like, and they do it like it's an in-school suspension, where they're like, all right, you're getting the death sentence now. But it's like, what about the other 19 murders that happened today?
It's a wash. It's a wash.
Just like one more Banshee related thing, like just to give you like an indication of how fun this town is to live in. Like I think the episode after the annual Spirit Festival is attacked by a gang of bikers who are like really the really like off-brand Sons of Anarchy. Like they're not like they're like the classic biker gang where they're like, are we running guns? No, we're just running from town to town, raping and assaulting people. Like, we're not organizing charity fun runs or anything. Like we're just a brotherhood of the road that likes, attacking innocent girls.
If it was the Sons, they would have killed more people like sheerly out of accident. They would have been like, oh, there's another parade where Bobby Elvis could sing at. Maybe they would have like come up with some deal to like sell like bootleg fried dough. And it would have killed half the town.
Or the latest enemies they've made in like the North Korean army show up in town and shoot it out with them. And like 80 people die in the crossfire.
The Hamas gun running pipeline dries up, and so they have to join forces with the Amish to traffic pies.
Oh, and I gotta say, Kai Proctor is one of the coolest villains that's ever been on a TV show.
Yeah, he's really
one of the coolest villains
He's
on
really
any
cool.
TV show. He is the man, as they say. But I was going to say, I think it's the episode after the annual Town Spirit Festival is assaulted by bikers that like the next week, the weekend detention for high schoolers is taken hostage by Wayne Grove from Heat.
Still an incompetent criminal who ends up dead.
And also still a rapist.
Yeah.
Yeah, has that guy ever played like a nice man who runs a sandwich shop? Like I feel like
not with that face.
Yeah, I guess not. I feel bad for it because he's a great fucking scumbag actor. Like one of the
so good.
He never misses the mark as a scumbag. But it's sort of like my thing how I want Gus Fring to play like a goofball who's always like accidentally spilling soup down his dresses, like a goofy waiter or something.
A lovable oaf.
Yeah, instead of like
he'll be playing Decrezio.
He should play Decrezio. It's like I know he does interviews where he's like, I love playing like the most evil guy in the world who like never loses his temper in every fucking role I ever play. But it's like, wouldn't you like just one time want to play like a Portuguese buffoon?
A little acting challenge.
I remember this story my grandfather told me about like dropping an eclair down the university president's wife's cleavage by accident. And it was like,
excuse me?
not during like this was not him participating in the sexual world. This was during this was
just pure oafishness.
Yeah, well, it's funny because he like really wasn't probably one of the least oafish members of my family ever. But it was like during some, soiree, and he was
eclair soiree.
Well, you know how it was in the
I do. Yeah, I was there.
Like there was post-war prosperity.
An eclair for every man's hand.
The least fancy man in town, like the local guy, like the 50-year-old man who gets paid to shine shoes, ate burrito rolls for every meal. That's how good things were. So even at like a C-tier school like the University of Chicago, they were eating eclairs. They probably eat gruel now. But he still thought it was like the funniest shit ever, like 60 years later. And it was. And so I've always held on to that as like something that a goofball character should do. And I would love to see I forgot his actual name.
Giancarlo
Esposito. I would love to see him do that as Decreccio. I think he would nail that.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. Well, there is a news peg to my reminiscing about the wonderful town of Banshee, Pennsylvania, because there's a story that came out today about a violent act that took place in the state of Pennsylvania. I'm referring, of course, to the arson attack on the governor's mansion while Josh Shapiro and his family were home. Folks, you heard about this one? I'm just about okay, so... everyone's safe, but someone tried to burn down Josh Shapiro's house while he was inside of it.
With a Molotov cocktail.
Yeah. And apparently the guy who did it is an Andrew Yang supporter, which is like, whenever a terrorist attack happens or like an assassination attempt on a public figure, there's always this like, everyone is sort of white knuckling it until the political affiliation of the attacker comes out.
Until the Facebook likes come out.
And this one, it just sort of like scrambles everything. I mean, like, who's claiming this guy? But I love the idea of like an abundantist vanguard of like Andrew Yang, like an Andrew Yang, like weatherman or something like that. But Felix,
I love that. I like the idea that like he's in interrogation and he's like usually when someone does this, they're like, all right, we're going to bring in someone who can make you talk. But they're going to give him a deal to stop talking about it. Like the moment they put his cuffs on, he was probably like, you're probably wondering why I did this. Did you know that it costs more to make a penny than to... And they're just like, well, look, we'll give you community service if you just stop fucking talking about this Andrew Yang shit. Can you shut the fuck up about UBI?
Well, of course, Felix, like when I first heard of Josh Shapiro getting his house burned in an arson attack, I immediately thought, well, the governor needs to address this. And what would that sound like? Well, folks, I think it would sound a little something like this. Y'all, you heard they tried to smoke me out? I told them, I don't put my lip on no blunt touched by another man. That's just gay. I smoke gas only. Don't pass that shit to me, homie. That's gay.
He's like at the press conference after, and he's like, we almost got toxic inhalation because I put a lot of plastic covers on all my furniture. It's actually something I've done my entire life, and my parents did it too.
I woke up in the middle of the night and I smelled something, but it wasn't fabuloso, so I knew something was wrong. I had to get my family out of the house. I don't feel in no ways burned.
Yeah. Why? So, like, why is an Andrew Yang guy mad at Shapiro?
I have no fucking clue.
It's actually like a mentally ill guy who went off his meds. That's what it is. As
it's
usual.
like a Thomas Crooks type guy. Like, just a confused, stupid American who's, like... I mean, this guy probably... You remember how, like, the thing with Thomas Crooks was that he gave $30 to Biden and Trump?
That is so funny.
It's hilarious because it's like...
It's an all-American guy, though.
Well, like, what did you think you were doing? That's why I wish he lived, because it's like, I would have, like, paid money to the government to, like, to add to my studies of the stupid. I've spent a lot of time around the stupids. I'm fascinated by them. And Thomas Crooks was like, to me, he would have been like, with the Savage from Brave New World. I would have spent the next 30 years studying him.
Felix is like the mind hunter, but for stupid people in America.
Yeah.
He's doing jailhouse interviews, being like,
tell me about your pornography addiction.
Yeah, what do you buy at 7-Eleven?
I was just like so fascinated by like, how did he even get to like a political donation page? Like, did he think it was like a sweepstakes? Did he think that's how you vote for them? Did he like try to vote for both of them?
He thought he was entering like a morning radio, like get tickets to Hot 97 if you just click this, and then you get 5 extra entries if you keep clicking it and share with your Facebook friends.
Tickets to Fog Hat if you donate to both presidential candidates. Backstage passes if you kill one of them.
Yeah. And like, Thomas Crooks is like, I don't think he knew who Andrew Yang was. So this guy's like less stupid than him, probably. Thomas Crooks also, like, you could not trust him to start a fire on purpose. He would have not gotten this far. Absolutely not. So I would wager that this guy is not like, with Crooks, it was like they already had the beat on him because he was so awful looking. He was one of those guys who...
He is on the government watch list for ugly people, unfortunately.
It's the FBI garbage pail kid list.
Although your listeners get really mad when we call people ugly, so...
I got a lot of people mad at me for my comments about Thomas Crooks, which really raises a lot of questions for me.
Yeah, it does.
But, no, like
have a little more confidence in your appearances, Chapo listeners. Like you don't have to identify with this guy.
I've met them. Yeah, they all look like fine young men and women to me.
With this guy though, I get more the vibe of like not quite the guy who shot Gabby Giffords, but like it's very 70s is what it is. When like the crazy people were more ambitious and did stuff like this all the time. It really doesn't have a modern analog.
You're right.
I would guess that he's probably like, out of modern people we recognize, he's probably closer to like the Joker shooter guy where he was like kind of a normal guy who was you would even trust him to know what concepts like, what is a passport?
Or like the awareness
do you
of
pay
like
taxes every year or do you just have to do it once? Like he more of a person than the average stupid, but something went wrong.
Even the fact that it's arson feels like a throwback because like the Joker shooter like at least had it together to like have a legally purchased firearm. And like that shows more awareness of cause and effect than like, a Molotov cocktail, very effective, but feels like, he could have just been drinking outside like a Quick Trip and then just gotten this idea and like walked a short distance to carry this out.
The Quick Trip near the governor's mansion?
Yes, Felix, yes.
It's Pennsylvania. Come on.
I mean, isn't it? It's like probably pretty hard to get to the governor's mansion.
It was, here's something for Pennsylvania listeners. Was it a Wawa or was it a Sheetz? Which one's better? Which has the better sandwiches? That's Pennsylvania culture.
That what a throwback to like 2014.
Yeah, there you go. I saved myself there.
That was such a good time when it was just like, no one was getting fired in media. It was all like Chris Eliza type people being like, well, we've seen the presidential debate. The real debate is fucking Wawa versus Sheetz. You're a terrible person if you like pineapple on pizza.
Yeah.
Well, we have certainly moved on from those times. The era of media abundance is over, and now we live in the hour of the wolf, and that's where I want to go.
Yeah,
for the next.
Oh my God, I'm sorry, but like think about if you were just like some like lame dick reporter for like Washington Post, and you've been in a coma since 2014. And you wake up like now and you're like, all right, everyone, I'm back. Okay, hot take. I like calzones or something. And all the people you used to talk to, they've all been fired. Like they're all homeless now. All their accounts are gone. They're all in Blue Sky. And everyone who replies to you is like, you're a pedophile who should kill yourself.
When you're doing like a
Ryan O'Neal.
When you're doing like a what? Shot chaser tweet.
Yeah. All your replies are like guys who live in Argentina called like the Mangala Innocence Project. You're a fucking pedophile. That's so scary. I hope that doesn't describe anyone. I hope no one's been in a coma since 2014.
Unfrozen Politico caveman reporter.
Oh, yeah, that's really sad.
Oh, yeah. Which Succession character am I? And then it's just like, you're going to the fucking gas chamber.
Yeah, here's your grandparents. And they just see their grandma with like a red beam on her forehead.
Well, yeah. Owie. I mean, I guess that's a good segue into where I'd like probably the most important story of the week for this week's edition of evil news.
How much worse can it get?
What's happening in the world of evil today and the horrible, unimaginable future in which we're all going to have to live? And I'd like to begin with just like the ongoing stuff with like deportations, whether it's of like Mahmoud Khalil. Immigration judge in Louisiana ruled that his deportation could proceed apace. Now, that is tempered by there is a judge in New Jersey that is still, like this case, is still subject to appeal. I did learn, however, that the immigration judge in Louisiana who ruled on this case is not, in fact, a member of an independent judiciary, but in fact does work for the executive branch of the government. So that's always fun to know about. But like, even more barbaric are the cases of people who are just being disappeared to this like fucking death camp in El Salvador. I mean, like the case on everyone, like the name on everyone's lips right now is Manuel Abrego Garcia, who's like one of these people who have been just disappeared to this El Salvadoran prison. Bukele was in the White House today in an absolutely grotesque spectacle of having him and Trump both say, well, we don't have the authority to return him. And like, the government has stated like openly that he was mistakenly deported.
And saying not our problem.
But then they're saying getting him back isn't our problem because he's in El Salvador's custody today. And now the president of El Salvador said in the Oval Office today, I don't have the authority to return him either.
Well, the point is there are no mistakes, right? Like,
well, I mean, no, the point, I think the point is that like, of course there are mistakes. The mistakes are the point. But
yes.
like the mistake would be correcting these errors because like they want to let you know that like there is no standard, there is no set criteria for what someone qualifies someone as a gang member or a threat to America or a terrorist supporter or whatever. And like all this stuff about how like, oh, no one can find him. I guess can't, out of sight, out of mind. Like what does raise the incredibly disturbing possibility that this guy is already dead.
Yeah.
Or that like, like any number of these people have just been, like I said, disappeared to a foreign country's, terrorist
without
gulag,
due process.
without any due process, like have already been killed inside.
The thing this reminded me, the thing that I was thinking about a lot while reading about this today and, my own encounters with like Trump people, one of whom argued to me he's not dead and in fact he's now safe from the gang. What
does that even mean?
I don't fucking know.
Oh, yeah, the fact that you can't hear from him means he's extra safe.
Yeah, like I just very confidently stating that, and I guess like technically safe from a gang. I get like, I don't know.
What, in a prison that's run exclusively by gang members?
Yeah. Well, I guess he's safe specifically from Tren de Agua was his point. I don't know. I think that's being too charitable.
These people are losing the plot.
Right.
No, I mean,
right,
I don't think they've lost the plot. I think they have the plot exactly, which is that like anyone deported from this country that they support, and anything that happens to them, no matter like if it's a matter of like, oh, they overstayed their visa by a year, well, then they deserve to die. They deserve to be executed by the state
via deportation.
So it reminded me of there were a few instances of things like this with Gitmo and Bagram, where we renditioned someone either from like Afghanistan or Pakistan, or in many cases from the US. We would rendition like citizens. And in a lot of cases, like the administration itself would admit that they were totally innocent. This was completely an error. Someone's neighbor lied about them. Any number of things. But the rationale for like why, even after they would get repatriated, why they couldn't get any compensation or legal admittance of wrongdoing was for national security reasons. With this, there's no pretense of this and no repatriation because I think with this, I think you're exactly right. Like the point of like doing this to someone that they acknowledge cannot even be suspected of anything is the message it sends, which is like, you can't, like, this is all so capricious and random, and there is so little recourse that, like, if you thought you could just fly under the fucking radar, well, good luck. So definitely don't try anything. Definitely don't say anything. Because even if you do everything right, we could still fuck up your entire life, and it'll be a funny joke that we tell each other.
You know, and like I saw another story today about how basically like just the ICE has sent out like just mass emails basically to anyone who has engaged the services of an immigration attorney, telling them that they have 7 days to leave the country. That quote, their parole is up. And these emails are also being sent to their lawyers who are U.S. citizens as well, telling them to leave the country.
Did you also see that story about like some teen was like went around the corner to do laundry and ICE guys just grabbed him and someone said like, this is not the right guy. And they said, grab him anyway.
Yeah.
And now he's like being deported. You know, like the punitive and totally arbitrary nature is the point to basically not only make everyone, you know, who's not an American-born natural citizen live in fear, but also just the idea that like even due process as a fundamental, you know, constitutional American right, or even just a right on American soil can touch you or can save you is like being totally outmoded and there's no recourse.
Absolutely. And like, and when I think about like whether it is any of the students who are being charged with felonies or being deported from the country for engaging in political speech or peaceful protest on behalf of Palestine, or if it is any of the people who are from Central America who are now being, many of them who have never even set foot in El Salvador, who are now being, like I said, deported to,
or are not even from there.
Yeah, like I said, like,
or you know, like even their parents aren't even from there.
Yeah, based on like spurious accusations that they belong in a gang, which is like that they're in a gang, which is like, you know, confirmed.
Trying to identify people's tattoos, which are just like a peace sign or something.
Exactly, stuff like that. And it's just like you hear the stories about these people, like any of these names that people are talking about, and that like are, you know, being used as a test case for like we can do this to anyone. None of them. I haven't seen a single example of any one of these like deportation cases where it's like a skull, like a guy whose like face is a tattooed skull and is like, you know, some like MS-13 like serial killer or something like that.
Well, and after
the fact that all of them seem to be totally law-abiding, like just people who work and have families in this country.
Taxpayers.
Yeah, like to pay taxes, work, have jobs,
do
and
not
families.
commit violent crimes.
Like have been in the country for 20 years as like, you know, like without committing any crime and are just like members of the communities that they live in. I think the point is like it is for the Stephen Millers of the White House, for the people behind this policy, it is more dangerous for them to have people like that living and working in America than like you know, like whatever phantom of like the scariest illegal drug dealing cartel Sicario that you can imagine. I think like they would much rather have like, you know, dangerous violent criminals in the country than law-abiding, like just like law-abiding family people and workers in this country, because like the message is they don't want anyone in this country who's not white. And then like the extent that there are non-white people in this country, they're going to try to get that number as low as possible. And the idea that like if an impression can be created that like immigrants, documented or otherwise, are just normal people who want to live and work in America, that is an existential threat to the project of like ethnically cleansing this country that animates this policy.
Yeah, to blood and soil.
And like when I think about this, like, you know, like in conjunction with like, you know, the tariff policy or just sort of like the closing off of America, I really wonder, like, what does this, like, you know, if this continues, like, what does this country have to offer the rest of the world? Like, I mean, we better start learning how to build things other than fucking the F-35 again, because like for all of my life, for better or worse, whether you can you can nibble around the edges of how true this is or not, but for better or worse, for as long as I've been alive, what America like offered to the rest of the world was a place that most people saw, correctly or incorrectly, as a nice, safe place to live, a place you wanted your kids to be educated in, a place that you want to visit or even move to.
Place of prosperity.
Because like for, you know, like for better or worse, like this is mostly a safe and prosperous country where like that gave the impression that it was ruled by a government and a legal system that had like checks and balances to prevent it from just being like the whims of one man. And and I think that the point is to like advertise to the world that like we don't want you. This is not an open country anymore. There's not a friendly country. There's not a country that wants you even to visit America legally or work or study here.
Thereby betraying even the illusion that,
This is a free country.
This is a free country that has any value proposition to offer the world other than Marvel movies. That's what we still build in this country.
The three things we export are pharmaceuticals, weapon systems, and Marvel movies, right?
Yeah.
But like the
and
way
avocados.
Right. And the way that we were able to just sort of like keep an edge to like keep building weapon systems and keep manufacturing pharmaceuticals was any exceptional person, the implicit guarantee was that if you had enough resources and enough ability, that this would be technically, the best place for you to possibly live. Yeah. Now that is obviously out. There is no ability, talent, maybe even resources that could keep this from happening to you, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to like identify what like this iteration of conservatism is about, because it's a bunch of things going in a bunch of different directions. It's, if you're a white shoe law firm, you have to like take on anti-Semitism cases pro bono. If you're a college, you have to accept like a guy who's 3 IQ points smarter than Thomas Crooks.
Yeah.
If you're like just all this like weird shit, but the most identifiable, if you could sum it up, right, it would be that they are like basically advertising, okay, we're doing the strategy of tension to everyone. No one can trust each other. You will all hate each other. There will be enough negative polarization that any awful thing, even done to like you, a member of your family, your fucking wife, you will go, well, it isn't actually like as bad as they said because articles are gay. It's fine that they stomped my wife's head into hamburger because what if she was bad? That's what the articles won't tell you. And so while doing that, also creating a country that no one wants to fucking even visit, much less come to if they have any exceptional abilities. What will replace that is, I guess, like we're going to manufacture like glow sticks because that's the only thing we have a supply chain for. So just like a shittier place where everyone hates each other. But if you like put it in those terms, the ones who aren't like, what are you talking about? We're going to go to fucking Mars. We're going to have nuclear powered aircraft. Like the people who aren't part of that like Palantir Teal delusion thing of this being like Pax Americana, they're like, no, that is what I want. It's like that leathery bitch I talked about who was like, no, it's our turn. These people that they've never fucking seen in their lives, that yesterday they would have no opinion of them. Now the fact that they are, that Cory Booker or fucking someone is bringing them up. Good. I want that guy to be stabbed to death in a Salvadorian prison. Why? Yeah. Because articles, fuck you. Like what? Like 40% of America signing on to go, let's make it as shitty as possible and as random and cruel and just pointless as possible.
I mean, like, I feel like she's like a Pax Americana. I think what it is like this is the building of Fortress America,
right?
Like based on the completely hallucinatory phantom idea that we're all in the safest country on the planet, like all under threat constantly, and that we should be paranoid and fearful of everyone around us, and that we're just going to like build the walls physically and metaphorically to lock everyone out of America. But really, what it's doing is locking everyone inside here and making this country like a fucking prison. Which is to say, more violent, hateful, racially segregated, where everyone understands that everyone is out for themselves and you can't trust a single other person.
And also, I think what's like
outside your gang or tribe.
What's perhaps most striking about this is that like there's no prosperity doctrine included in it. Like to me, the idea of selling Fortress America to people is that like we have to hoard resources amongst ourselves, like immigrants are taking it all. But this is like, okay, everything in America is so shitty and your life is so degraded. That's why we need to become Fortress America. Like we need to become the Escape from New York prison. Like we're not going to improve anything for anyone, but at least no one else will come into your like shitty front yard.
Yeah.
It's like ensuring the shitty status quo without any promise of like, okay, that's why we're keeping out immigrants is because we want to redistribute the wealth to you.
Yep.
It's like, no, just further enshittification forever and ever and ever.
Yeah, it's like, why do we have to get rid of due process and freedom of speech? Like,
So you can't have it either.
So no one can have it.
Yeah.
Like, so things will get better for everyday average Americans? No, we're doing it so things will get worse.
Why can't a college kid like sign an op-ed with 30 other people? Because you have no free speech rights either, and you're happy to give away those civil rights because, like, it's like, what is the parable about, like, God saying, I'll, whatever I give you, I'll give to your neighbor twofold, and the guy says, okay, I'm taking out one of my eyes. That's what this is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, like, if I want to get really fucking bleak here, I mean, I think the reality is the fact that, like, this assault on due process and freedom of speech, like the two core American values that, like I said, whatever quibbles you want to make with it, did advertise this country credibly to the rest of the world as a safe, free country where, like, citizen or not, you were free from, like, arbitrary detention and prosecution by the state.
Based on political agendas.
I think the fact that this is all being done under the guise of immigration enforcement means that I think probably roughly half of this country are totally okay with it. In fact, they love it and are braying for more.
This is the perfect test case because it's both immigration, but it's also about, like the next move is, which they're already kind of doing with like these law firms and whatever else, just being able to like suspend people's right to due process because they're political opponents of this administration. Like that's what's next.
I am kind of reminded of, I mean, it really seems insane now in light of everything, like what these policies turned out to be, the sheer unpopularity and hollow initial popularity of the administration. But the basic posture of American liberalism, but specifically the Democratic Party in the first few months after the election, which is like, hey, I guess this is what this country is about, and there's nothing we can do but just go along with it until they fuck up. Part of that was just to, like, anything that they said or proposed about immigration, we just have to go along with because the amorphous blob of normalcy that dictates everything, the popularist credo that dictates everything except our policy on fucking Israel, dictates that they just want harsher immigration. Okay, well, the smart move is to just go along with it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember talking about this before the inauguration, and our conclusion was, like, they don't care when they fuck up, and there's no recourse, and the point is just to, like, fuck up as many people's lives as possible and make as many people as fearful as possible. But even then, like, I could not have predicted how true that would be or to what extent it would go. But it just, like, the idea of just, like, go along with this until the fever breaks seems so fucking insane now. It seemed insane then, but, like, holy shit. I think it would have happened anyway, unfortunately. But just, like, lending momentary legitimacy to this was one of the dumbest fucking amoral things anyone could have done.
Well, and they have no answer to any of this. They're happy to be caught flat-footed. Their answer to this is holding up a folder in front of their faces for a photo during a photo op.
Oh yeah, we're fucking gorgeous Gretchen. Gretchen, show that gorgeous face. What are you doing hiding?
Yeah.
What are you doing hiding behind folders?
That's the future of the Democratic Party. It's just like, what are we supposed to do? They're in power. It's their government. And also basically like, well, America's so racist that like, what are we supposed to even do? We want those racist votes too. So like,
but like, even with the people who are realizing that like it would pay off more to make a stand, like Cory Booker,
right.
Even he won't talk about like New Jersey residents that are being abducted by ICE because maybe someone might think they're anti-Semitic because they signed a fucking petition somewhere.
Also, did anyone control F his 25-hour-long speech for Gaza? Just a quick question.
What do you think?
I didn't do that because I don't need to.
Yeah,
I already know the answer.
25 hours and couldn't mention fucking Gaza once.
Especially because he was talking about like, we don't want to live in a country where like the wretched history of this country is sanitized. Like we need to stand up for the truth.
You're sanitizing it in real time.
And he's like talking about all the activists of like, of the civil rights era and like how they would feel about this now. And then like the next day he votes to send more fucking bombs to Israel.
Yeah, cry me a fucking river.
And Felix, you bring up like the Democratic, the popularist credo.
The pop soda
is that as soon as something becomes popular, the Democrats should just adopt it, except for Israel. And I bring this up in the context of I saw this week a poll conducted by the Pew polling group that showed that for the first time ever in polling this question, a majority of Americans, by about 53%, now have an unfavorable view of Israel.
And that's across
and
parties.
and this is not Democrats. This is not young people. This is it was not broken down by Democrat versus Republican. This is across the board. All Americans, 53%. And the polls done by Pew. So, I mean, I think it's a reputable polling firm. I mean, take it with all a grain of salt, but that indicates something. That indicates a major seismic shift in public opinion on Israel that I don't think is going to turn around anytime soon. But what is going to happen, like I said, Trump in his statements today in the Oval Office with Bukele said openly, the homegrowns are next. And I would love to start deporting American citizens to the El Salvadoran death camp. And it's just get the loyalty oaths ready for Israel, or you're going to be fucking deported or killed.
Well, made a non-citizen overnight.
Yeah, you will be
have
made,
your green card rescinded,
your passport taken away.
Yeah, and just be these are also meant to be fast deportations. It's bad for the administration that Khalil has even been given his day in court. They want to disappear people from this guy. He should have been tried in New Jersey, first of all. Summarily, sending him to Louisiana, this hell on earth detention center, which is actually a prison. I don't know why people even say detention center, and they just want to get people out of the country before their lawyer even has the chance to locate them.
And like I said, the attack on free speech, this is how they're going to continue to enforce U.S. policy in, it's a twofold.
The empire comes home.
The Democrats and the media just simply won't talk about it. They'll just simply ignore Israel-Palestine. They'll ignore Gaza entirely. And we'll talk a little bit about that more in a second. And then for everyone else, it's you can just be made regardless of where you were born or your citizenship status, you will just be made you'll be
de-person.
You'll be de-person overnight as a way to enforce compliance in a country where now the majority of people are at the very least look at Israel and go, that's it's too much.
But are also happy to look the other way.
Too far.
On this.
Yeah.
At the very least, if not actively co-sign it.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Like I said, Hour of the Wolf, but I do want to get to the other political stories from this week, which are sort of we've seen now this past week sort of the two avenues that appear to be opening up for the Democratic Party and as the opposition or the good party that you have to vote for because the ones currently in power are basically turning this country into an outright dictatorship. And the first one I'm going to begin with is, of course, Kamala Harris. Yeah, remember her? Headline here in Vanity Fair, Kamala Harris has been quietly, carefully working the phones and plotting her next move. Right here. Kamala Harris was most definitely saying, I told you so about Donald Trump. Last week, the former vice president made a surprise appearance at a women's leadership conference in California's Orange County, giving her first extended remarks since her November 6th concession speech. Harris's tone was somber, with one major exception. There are many things that we knew would happen, she said before departing from her written text. I'm not here to say I told you so. I swore I wasn't going to say that. With that, Harris briefly backed away from the mic, laughing and grinning. I thought she performed incredibly well. One of her best speeches, said Ashley Etienne, who worked as Harris's communications director during her first year as vice president and was in the room last week. The way I read it was, she felt a little lighter in her presentation, but heavier in the depth of what she was saying.
It's so evil.
And this goes on to say, she's been meeting in Beverly Hills with a lot of Democratic Party bigwigs and well-heeled donors
also,
of the party.
Just point of information, I think her first extended remarks were actually at a paid speech at a bank.
Yeah.
It was for Australia's biggest realtor conference.
Oh, yeah. Forgive me for mistaking them.
I just hate this, thing of every time someone runs for president and loses, and they're they predicted all of this. And it's what the fuck do you think a campaign is? Going out there. I mean, bullshit aside, I think he'll be a great president.
Yeah.
Well, look, also, you get no credit. You lost.
Yeah.
You predicted all of this, so did everyone else, but you didn't run a good enough campaign. So you get no credit.
Yeah, this is just one more here from the New York Times. Ms. Harris, who jokes to friends that she is unemployed for the first time, has explored options beyond pursuing electoral office too. She has hired the Creative Artist Agency to gauge interest in speaking engagements in a potential book. An aide has held preliminary talks with universities about establishing a policy institute, though some warn that could complicate her political aspirations. Ms. Harris has told friends and allies that so she is still processing the November result, in which she lost every swing state and saw record numbers of Black and Latino voters, historically among most reliable Democrats, reject her. But I think that Kamala is absolutely getting ready to run for president again in 2028. And once again, if polls are to be believed, she is currently among Democrats, the leading candidate to run again for president in 2028.
Also, just let me say, on behalf of all under and unemployed women in this country, we do not claim her. We do not claim her. We reject her wholeheartedly. She's not welcome in the clubhouse.
That's just such a bullshit, yeah, that's what everyone thinks about her. You know, she's always just kept busy. So weird to see her not at work. What, are you Jack Donaghy? No one thinks that about you.
No one's going to tell her to go hike in the woods and learn to knit. Remember that? Remember how fun that was?
She's meeting with CAA. I would watch a Kamala, reality show that's if it was called, Doug and Kamala Achieving Normal. And it was about them learning to pretend that they're a normal couple.
Just at dinner with Ella Emhoff and the son, talking about hey, how was the Downtown Lit magazine party? Was it bussin'?
Yeah, or just I don't know, going over contract negotiations for when they renew the marriage.
Well, CAA can be valuable in that regard.
Absolutely. So there's Kamala out there, like I said, I think for fairly obviously laying the groundwork to take another crack at it in 2028. And
well, who else is there?
And run on the "Hey, I told you so" platform, which fuck me, it could work. Who knows? And then in contrast with, or perhaps not enough in contrast with, the huge rallies that took place here in Los Angeles this week for AOC and Bernie, and the Fight the Oligarchy tour that they're going on right now, which is is indeed turning out huge numbers of people. He's not even running for president.
Biggest Bernie rally ever.
And I think a lot of people are saying that this is laying the groundwork for AOC to run for president. And I've thought a lot about these big rallies and the obvious energy that they're sort of channeling, and the numbers of people that will turn out to support this, because this is what they want from Democratic leaders in this country, is given as we just spent the last 20 minutes describing, the atmosphere of just choking fear and grotesquerie that exists in this country, and anger among parts of normie liberal voters about their party's inability or unwillingness to challenge any of this, or just
across all demographic lines. Also, people just want someone to echo their anger and tell them that they're not alone and they're not crazy.
And to that end, I can't shit on big public outpourings of physical support and thousands and thousands of people turning out for what is, in my opinion, a mostly positive political message. But that being said, I feel I've seen this movie before, and I think soberly we should have to consider some of the limitations of this. And yes, I'm sorry, critique the obvious blind spots as it regards Gaza. An issue that obliterates all others in terms of how important and immediate it is among the people that we want to sort of carry the mantle of what is a moral or progressive or liberal or socialist vision of how this country could be governed in the future.
A country where whatever was done in Gaza is just over there and it's implicitly okay. That is a country where everything else happened. That is a country where citizens, green card holders, fucking anybody can be disappeared to a Salvadorian hellhole and never to be seen again. It is not just foreign policy. It is a test of how much people will accept. There's no disconnecting them. And at the end of the day, I think it is better to have these than not, right? I think it is
for morale, solidarity, and you said, you give the impression that you're not going insane. That there are huge numbers of people in this country who are not on board with the evil that is just coursing through.
Right. It's better to have a physical presence for opposition.
Yes.
For them not to just think that everyone is just glumly like keeping their heads down and shuffling through this, hoping it will end. That is always better. Absolutely. But yeah, both for the gigantic blind spot in the issue that binds all of this together. Bernie just said, Israel has a right to defend itself. Still fucking saying that. And I do think, you know, for all like my criticisms of AOC specifically, I think Bernie has disgraced himself far more in the past 5 years between the two. Yeah. He has said and done the far more fucking disgraceful things for as bad as tirelessly working and all the other shit was. But the thing that like frightens me about AOC as the next standard bearer is I think whoever comes next, if they have even a dream of unfucking things up, they're going to have to harden their hearts.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're going to have to go beyond where Lula is going. They are probably going to have to break the law. They're going to have to make people too afraid to just try this again the fucking next time.
And they won't.
And I don't think that's her. I don't know who that is. I don't know who, if that person even exists in the realm of possible candidates. But I do know that in order to even get back somewhere, to even be in a position to make things better, it would have to be someone who is ready to do this and cannot be derailed by anyone who can adopt the language of a mid-sized American university's in-house PR department.
Yeah.
Felix, you had a great line about AOC is that she's easier to move than a hitman NPC, and like that is that is a huge liability. You can just like, you know, like a video game where you can like throw a pebble and like the guards are like, what was that?
yeah. If you just say unsafe, she'll be like, "Oh my god, I didn't realize I was doing that."
And Felix, I think the point you made about how like they have to be willing to break the law is so important. It's like similar to what I said last week. Is that like any productive economic policy in this country will inevitably result in the stock market crashing. So like you're just gonna have to like get ready to steel yourself for the reaction when that happens. And the good news is that the Trump administration right now is establishing the precedent that the executive branch can absolutely ignore a Supreme Court ruling, as they're doing right now with these deportations. You know, like I guess like as terrifying as that is, it does imply that like a different executive could ignore the Supreme Court for a good reason rather than a pure evil one.
Yes.
I also just want to point out, like, to me, and people will probably get mad at this, to me, like the message itself reveals its limitations. Fight oligarchy. You know, oligarchy will be the death of us all. You know, it's like one of the main reasons we don't have any nice things in this country. But, and, you know, again, I don't care, but, you know, it's similar to like Black Lives Matter. It's inherent, like, of course, Black Lives Matter. Of course, we should fight oligarchy. But like, what is the actionable part of that, kind of organizing mantra? You know, like you have to fight against something. And in fighting against something, you have to advocate for a different concrete policy vision of the world. Fighting is not enough. You have to be fighting for a better future. And I simply think that, like, you know, without teeth and without, like a real plan, like, you know, this organizing kind of like, you know, it's good energy. It's great to have people feeling not alone. It's great to have people coming out of their houses and coming together and being anti-Trump and being anti-oligarchy. But like, where does it go? You know, like similar to Black Lives Matter, all the energy of that movement, which was so heartening for that whole summer, you know, kind of just crashed and burned because it had nowhere to go other than
just vote for the next Democrat.
Yeah,
and like,
exactly.
and Felix, this is a point you made. Like, look, this is what I mean. But like, I've seen this movie before. Like, we've seen Bernie already turn out huge numbers of people and like really motivate a large constituency of people in this country. But like, unfortunately, that constituency in a 1v1 primary or election is still not enough. And like, I hate to say it, but like another example that comes to mind right now in New York City is Zoran. Like, I think he's run a magnificent campaign and I think he's got great ideas and he has like really turned out a great deal of support, a lot of individual donors. And like, I greatly admire what he's done. And I'm not like, this isn't all just doom and gloom. However, He is currently 30 points underwater to Andrew Cuomo, who has basically not been seen in public once since declaring his candidacy for mayor.
Right.
He has not done a single campaign event. He has not done a single media interview. He is living in a hotel and just waiting for the primary in June, and he's probably going to win. And once again, I don't relish in saying that. I'm still supporting Zoran proudly. I'm still going to vote for him, and I think everyone should as well. But that should tell you something. And I don't have an answer to this. I don't have a solution. But if it is going to come down eventually to we gave it a good shot and we brought awareness to a lot of issues and we sort of expanded the horizons of political possibility in this country. But at the end of the day, we're just going to endorse the next awful Democrat who's going to beat us.
Because we couldn't get it done at the ballot box.
I don't know what the future is unless you're really willing to break with the Democratic Party.
Yeah, that is it at the end of the day. We talked about it on our Mélenchon episode, and we've talked about it a lot in reference to Bernie versus his other counterparts in electoral politics across the world. It strains credulity to say we're going to fight the oligarchy, we're going to take it down, and we are going to deliver a better vision of the future when you cannot fight the Democratic Party at its weakest. At a certain point, you have to realize, there has to be fucking something else.
The Democrats aren't getting it done, and also there are oligarchs on the Democratic side. It just underlines the limited horizon of this particular message.
I think a positive political message would just be to forget all policy. Just be elect us, and I promise to use all of the current executive powers that are being expended right now to just jail everyone in the Trump administration.
Yeah.
Without due process, without a court, without a judge hearing a case, to jail or deport all of these criminals or all these crooks and degenerates from America. Yeah, and don't indict him 50 times. Just get rid of him.
Right. Even when Trump is gone or JD Vance or fucking whoever, you will still have all the ICE guys who happily did this and are going to leap at the chance to do it again. How do you make them stop? I don't know. Make them afraid of a fucking consequence for the first time.
Do some Nuremberg trials.
Yeah. I mean, that is a proven way to at least make people too afraid to easily try it again.
Campaign promise, day one. Imprison Donald Trump, his family, everyone who served in his administrations, and freeze all of their assets and then get them out of this fucking country. And then also and then do the same thing to the entire infrastructure of their political and economic support.
I think you'd see even more than 36,000 people in the streets for that.
I think I think that would have a message that would turn out a fair number of people.
That's just icky to Democrats. It is.
I mean, it's icky to me too. I've been defending freedom of speech and due process, but I said, we live in a world now where it's the prisoner's dilemma. You got to do it to them first because they're doing it to you. They're already doing it to you.
Yeah, I mean, it all goes back to Bush. There was a chance to put Bush away, to put away people like Douglas Feith and John Yoo, who signed off on the thing that got this fucking ball rolling with the Patriot Act, with the renditions of American citizens. When no one saw no legal consequence, no real professional consequence, no social consequence for any of this, that opened the door for all of this.
Yes.
We're going to need some kind of truth and reconciliation committee and some sort of Robespierre-like revolutionary court as well to process.
When you show someone any of these horrible stories of people who did fucking nothing and they go, good, it's our turn. They're not going to stop because of the goodness of their heart, because they ran into 3 Christmas ghosts. The only thing that will stop them is fear.
Yeah.
That is the only thing.
Oh, wait, Chris, you want to give us a scene report? Because I know we've been talking about the Bernie AOC rally, but producer Chris attended the one in Los Angeles, and I think for journalistic integrity, we should get a first person perspective on the proceedings.
Yeah, so I had some friends from San Diego drive up because they were planning on attending a friend who's a veteran and his girlfriend who has a job who is unionized. Under the Teamsters, so they wanted to come up for it and asked to stay at our place. So I figured, what the hell, I'm not doing anything on a Saturday morning. I'll go down and check it out. Ran into some other friends there. I mean, it's nice. It's very nice to see everybody out. We've seen these for a decade now. Huge, diverse, intergenerational, interracial crowd. I mean, at one point I was standing in between a group of what I could describe as Zoomer metalheads and middle-aged Chicano longshoremen's union guys. And can we say Chicano anymore? They had pins that said Chicano labor on it. So
okay.
I think
Who has said that you can't say that?
I don't know. I don't know if that's the
Cancel
right. Yeah, yeah.
culture.
How many articles are you reading a week, Chris?
But yeah, it was a lot of like everything from people in Ruth Bader Ginsburg hype shirts and Harris Waltz hats.
Wow, I
to,
thought that phenotype was extinct.
well,
As
they're
a side
still
note.
out at the Bernie rally
Oh.
too. I did clock a couple Zapata offshore hats there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Greatest selling hat in history.
Yes, exactly. So I mean,
Made in America, by the way.
that's basically it. I was not able to.
For a while.
I was not able to actually say for AOC and Bernie, but you know, they had some hotel workers speak before, had some local politicians speak. Everybody was on message. I was pleased that even between the local politicians and they had that guy Max Frost, the Zoomer congressman.
Oh, right.
Oh, the Kingdom Hearts fucker.
Yeah, exactly.
Did he have a
Kingdom
keyblade
Hearts
with him?
No, he didn't. He was very competent, very on message, very Bernie-crat in his speech. Not a lot of, from what I saw, like straight orange man bad stuff, but a lot of, you know, we have to deal with Medicare for all, got a number of mentions. That's still in the convo there. Housing, healthcare, climate, you know, it's the same message, but everybody's very on point, mostly forward thinking. I did talk to my friends who stayed the entire time. Their report was mostly AOC did the diagnosis of what's wrong now. Bernie did the roadmap for the future. I asked if the word Gaza was said at all. They said there were some mentions of Palestine, but no Gaza specifically. Yeah, I mean, I second everything you guys said in the analysis thing, but we'll just concur that the energy is nice, and it is, if anything, to just keep that core alive does have some value. And to see the diversity and enthusiasm and passion there in real life is always a powerful reminder that this is something that exists in the real world, even if we still don't know what the fuck to do with it. Anyway, that's my scene report.
I think that's very worth saying, and this has been a very, a downer, some would say, but we've referenced the Bush administration a lot this episode, and a lot in reference to this current Trump administration. I will say, like, the most hopeless anything felt it's not now. Sure shit, it's not now. It was a time like 2003 where things like this were happening, and we were gearing up for another war, and there was some opposition, but for the most part, it seemed like the Bush administration would not even have to go to these lengths, because no one like gave a shit at that time. It wasn't like 2007, like things get collapsed in people's memories and they just refer to this broad Bush era, but it took a long time to get to the point where it was even openly okay to talk about like the failings of the administration. We're not there. We're not at some point where like it is some taboo topic just out of social ostracization that like they don't even have to go to these lengths. It's called comfort, but the fact that they are basically openly telegraphing their plan to revoke American citizenship in defense of Israel is proof of a tenuous position, I would say.
Definitely.
Yeah.
How that ends, what goes with it, I don't know. None of us know, and even if we did, you don't get anything for predicting the future.
I told you so.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But
As my lungs fill with gas.
yeah, but all things being equal, better to be here than to be in a position where no one fucking gives a shit at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
you're just screaming through the glass trying to get people to notice.
I will also say that I was entertained by the small but very noticeable Avakianite presence outside.
Now we have an answer. Now we have finally have an answer.
I would like
That's a policy.
outside the rally, effectively protesting the rally, and the message that they were going on and had flyered around the perimeter was no, Bernie, it's not the 1%, it's the 50% of fascist Americans.
I mean, honestly, honestly, facts.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly,
kind of.
can I really disagree with Sherman Bob there? Like, after everything I've just said on this show,
can't it be both?
of the of utterly irredeemable swine portion of this country.
I mean, everything you reported about the rally, it was very reassuring to hear. But knowing that the Bob people are still doing that's like a warm hug.
Yeah.
I think no matter what, they're going to be like, if like there's nuclear war and we live through threads and we have like, you know, early agrarian elections with like councils of elders, there will still be
putting pebbles in a bucket.
Yeah, there will still be Chairman Bob guys that are like, Gug the Magnificent is a social fact. Yeah, fuck everyone who's able to domesticate crops.
And while I'm on here, I'm glad that you brought up the thing about what would prevent the next guy theoretically from just using this administration's policies to it keeps feeling like a very base lib fantasy of mine, but it is exactly what you said. Like, what prevents the next guy from coming in and just declaring MAGA a terrorist movement, which anyone could do, any executive could do, and rendering all the leadership into foreign custody under, say, Cuba or maybe the ANC, and just see what they do with the MAGA leadership for a few months while we sort it out in courts.
I wouldn't want to do that to Cuba. They certainly don't deserve it.
It's a fantasy that I've been having for a little bit, but
well, I mean, like the point is like elections are not going to make these people go away. I mean, I'm not saying like, oh, we need to kill half the country or anything like that, but like the point is like the power of reactionary force, whatever you want to say, like cannot be defeated through elections. Like they can, like their progress in turning this country into Fortress America can only be impeded temporarily.
Well, you do kind of need to win elections in order to wield political power.
Yeah, but then you need to wield power. But then you need to actually wield it against your enemies.
First, unfortunately, you do need to win elections in order to wield the power. And the Democratic Party is semi-interested in winning elections, but is certainly demonstratively not interested in wielding political power against its friends or enemies.
They should start like imposing new curriculum codes on universities where it's just like Harvard has to be anti-Semitic now.
Yeah.
I would love to be the anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
Oh,
that would be
the
perfect.
Felix Biederman Endowed Chair of Anti-Semitism created at Harvard University. Oh, wow.
No, make these fucking law firms defend Palestinian students.
You could create the white noise department of Nazi studies.
The Department of Hitler.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, the Department of Hitler Studies. God. The Department of Anti-Semitic Studies.
All right. Let's leave it there for today.
We managed to end on a less downer note.
Yeah.
We're laughing about anti-Semitism.
Actually, going to end the show on a much lighter note with a little an important announcement for you. We talked about the movie Ephus that we helped produce and that I play a very small role in. Well, people have been always asking, oh, I can't see it. I don't live in New York or LA. And it's just like, well, that's your fault. But thankfully, starting tomorrow, April 15th, Ephus will be available everywhere fine movies are bought or rented.
What?
Yeah, you will be able to watch Ephus on Amazon,
So
Apple
stop your
TV,
belly
Fandango
aching.
at Home, Google Play, and YouTube. All this information and associated links will be available on ephusfilm.com on the morning of release tomorrow, as well as the Music Box Films website. And there is also a merch store will go live on Tuesday. And if you can get some Ephus baseball hats. But for any of you who have not had the opportunity to see Ephus yet, it is coming to your home television or laptop movie watching device.
It's a special film. It made me care about baseball, which is a monumental task.
It's a beautiful film, and I'm really glad it's now available. It's going to be available to rent everywhere. So everyone, please go out and rent and watch Ephus, coming to homes tomorrow.
Coming to VOD.
Yes. All right. That does it for us today. Thank you, Catherine, for joining us once again.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Till next time, everybody. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.